Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
That day of 8th of March, Virginia, commanded by Commander Franklin Buchanan, he was ready to engage the Union flotilla blockading the James River. Virginia was powered by Merrimac's original engines, which had been condemned by the U.S. Navy before her capture. Ship's chief engineer, H. Ashton Ramsey, he served in the Merrimac before the Civil War broke out and knew the engine's unreliability, but Buchanan pushed forward undaunted.
All right.
Slow-moving Virginia attacked the Union blockading squadron in Hampton Roads, destroying the sail frigates Cumberland and Congress.
Oh, damn it. Early on in the battle, the steam frigate USS Minnesota ran around.
He's a run around.
ran aground while attempting to engage the Virginia and remained stranded throughout the very battle. Virginia, however, was unable to attack Minnesota before daylight faded. That day, Buchanan was severely wounded in the leg and was relieved of command by Catesby Roger Jones.
Son of, baby.
Yeah. Days before the battle, a telegraph cable was laid between Fortress Monroe, which overlooked Hampton Roads, and Washington.
Yeah, Washington was immediately informed of the dire situation after the initial battle. Many were now concerned Virginia would put to sea and begin bombarding cities such as New York, while others feared that she would ascend to the Potomac River and attack Washington. In an emergency meeting among Lincoln, Secretary of War Stanton, Secretary Wells, and other senior naval officers, inquiries were made about the Monitor's ability to stop Virginia's prospect of further destruction. So we need to get her in there.
Right. When the temperamental Stanton learned that Monitor had only 2 guns, he expressed contempt and rage as he paced back and forth, further increasing anxiety and despair among attendees of the meeting. Assurances from Admiral Dahlgren and other officers that the Virginia was too massive to effectively approach Washington, and that the Monitor was capable of meeting the challenge gave him no consolation. He's like, I don't know, man.
After further deliberation, Lincoln was finally assured, but Stanton remained almost in a state of terror and sent telegrams to various governors and mayors of the coastal states warning them of the danger. Jeez, guy.
Shit.
Subsequently, Stanton approved a plan to load some 60 canal boats with stone and gravel and sink them in the Potomac, but Wells was able to convince Lincoln at the last moment that such a plan would only prevent Monitor and other Union ships from reaching Washington.
Right.
And that barges should only be sunk only if Virginia was able to make her way up the Potomac.
Exactly.
Right, guy. I mean, geez, what is this? Stanton, you need to calm down, dude.
Oh, man. About 9 p.m., Monitor finally arrived on the scene, only to discover the destruction that Virginia had already wrought on the Union fleet. Worden, he was ordered upon reaching Hampton Roads to anchor alongside the USS Roanoke and report to Captain John Marston. Worden was briefed on the situation and received further orders. That orders were to protect the grounded Minnesota. By midnight, under the cover of darkness, the Monitor quietly pulled up alongside and behind the Minnesota and waited.
It's a talented boat, alongside and behind.
Right.
Well, that next morning, about 6 a.m., the Virginia, accompanied by Jamestown, Patrick Henry, and Teaser, they got underway from Sewell's Point to finish off the Minnesota and the rest of the blockaders, but they were delayed from reaching Hampton Roads because of heavy fog until about 8 a.m.
Oh.
In Monitor, Worden was already at his station in the pilot house, while Green took command of the turret. Samuel Howard, acting master of the Minnesota, he was familiar with Hampton Roads with its varying depths and shallow areas. He volunteered to be the pilot the night before and thus was accepted, while Quartermaster Peter Williams steered the vessel throughout the battle. Williams, he was later awarded the Medal of Honor for this act.
Oh.
Now, the speaking tube used to communicate between the pilot house and the turret broke early in the action, so Keeler and Toffee had to relay commands from Worden to Green. As the Virginia approached, she began firing at the Minnesota from more than a mile away, a few of her shells hitting the vessel. When the firing was heard in the distance, Green sent Keeler to the pilot house for permission to open fire as soon as possible. Worden ordered, "Tell Mr. Green not to fire till I give the word, to be cool and deliberate, to take sure aim and not waste a shot."
The Monitor, to the surprise of Virginia's crew, emerged from behind the Minnesota, positioned herself between her and the grounded ship, preventing the old Reb Ironclad from further engaging the vulnerable wooden ship at close range. 8:45 a.m., Worden gave the order to fire. Green fired the first shots of the battle between the 2 ironclads, which harmlessly deflected off the Confederate ironclad. During the battle, Monitor fired solid shot about once every 8 minutes, while Virginia fired shell exclusively.
The Ironclads fought generally at close range for 4 hours, ending at 12:15 p.m., ranging from a few yards to more than 100. Both ships were constantly in motion, maintaining a circular pattern. Because of Virginia's weak engines, great size and weight, and a draft of 22 feet, she was slow and difficult to maneuver, taking her a half an hour to complete a 180-degree turn.
Jeez. During the engagement, the controls of the machinery driving Monitor's turret spindle began to malfunction, making it extremely difficult to turn and stop the turret itself at a given position. So the crew simply let the turret continuously turn and fire their guns on the fly as they bore on the Virginia. The Monitor received several direct hits on the turret, causing some bolts to violently shear off and ricochet around inside. The deafening sound of the impact stunned some of the crew, causing bleeding from their noses and ears. Yeah, you got a big old iron thing getting fucking hit.
However, neither vessel was able to sink or seriously damage the other. At one point, Virginia attempted to ram, but only struck Monitor a glancing blow and did no damage. The collision did, however, aggravate the damage to Virginia's bow from when she previously rammed the Cumberland. Monitor was also unable to do significant damage to the Virginia, possibly because her guns were firing with reduced charges on advice from Commander John Dahlgren, who lacked the preliminary information needed to determine what amount of charge was needed to pierce, dislocate, or dislodge iron plates of various thicknesses and configurations.
Nothing you got. During the battle, Stoddard was stationed at the wheel that controlled the turning of the turret. But at one point, when he was leaning against its side, the turret received a direct hit directly opposite to him, which knocked him clear across the inside, rendering him unconscious. He was taken below to recover and relieved by steamers. The two vessels were at such close range that they collided 5 times. By 11 a.m., Monitor's supply of shot in the turret had been exhausted.
Oh, no. With one of the gun port covers jammed shut, she hauled off to shallow waters to resupply the turret and repair the damaged hatch, which could not be fixed. During the lull in the battle, Warden climbed through the gun port out onto the deck to get a better view of the overall situation. Shouldn't have done that. Virginia, seeing Monitor turn away, turned her attention to the Minnesota and fired shots that set the wooden vessel ablaze, also destroying the nearby tugboat Dragon. When the turret was resupplied with ammo, Warden returned to the battle with only one gun able to fire.
Towards the end of the engagement, Warden directed Williams to steer Monitor around the stern of the Confederate ironclad. Lieutenant Wood fired Virginia's 7-inch brick gun at Monitor's pilot house, striking the forward side directly beneath the sight hold, cracking the structural iron log along the base of the narrow opening just as Warden was peering out. Warden was heard crying out, "My eyes, I'm blind!" Others in the pilot house had also been hit with fragments and were also bleeding.
Temporarily blinded by shell fragments and gunpowder residue from the explosion, and believing the pilot house to be severely damaged, Warden ordered Williams to sheer off into shallow water, where Virginia with her deep draft could not follow. There the Monitor drifted idly for about 20 minutes. At the time the pilot house was struck, Warden's injury was only known to those in the pilot house and immediately nearby. With Warden severely wounded, command passed to the executive officer Samuel Green. Taken by surprise, he was briefly undecided as what action to take next, but after assessing the damage, soon ordered Monitor to return to battle.
Shortly after, Monitor withdrew. Virginia ran aground, at which time Jones came down from the spar deck to find the gun's crew not returning fire. Jones demanded to know why and was briefed by Lieutenant Ingleston that the powder was low and precious, and given Monitor's resistance to shot after 2 hours of battle, maintained that the continued firing at that point would be a waste of ammo. Virginia soon managed to break away and headed back towards Norfolk for needed repairs, believing that the Monitor had withdrawn from battle. Green did not pursue. Like Warden, he was under orders to stay and protect Minnesota, an action for which he was later criticized for.
Oh, jeez. As a result of the duel between the two ironclads, Monitor struck 22 times, including 9 hits to the turret and 2 to the pilot house. She had managed to fire 41 shots from her pair of Dahlgren guns. The Virginia sustained 97 indentations to her armor from the fire of the Monitor and other ships. Neither ship sustained any significant damage, and in the opinion of Virginia's Commander Jones and her other officers, Monitor could have sunk their ship had she hit the vessel at the waterline.
Strategically, the battle between these two ships was considered the most definitive naval battle of the Civil War. The battle itself was largely considered a draw, though it could be argued Virginia did slightly more damage. Monitor did successfully defend Minnesota and the rest of the Union blockading force, while Virginia was unable to complete the destruction she started the previous day. The battle marked a turning point in the way the naval warfare would be fought in the future for all of the world.